This would be the type of plugger that you would pretty much see at a rental, rental place. I think Home Depot rents pluggers, and places that sell lawnmowers and stuff like that. They may rent them, farm stores. But this is your typical walk behind plugger. You walk behind it. You would squeeze this to make it go forward, and you would push this bar down to actually put the tines in the ground. We don't like to turn around with those things in the ground. They make them now that have a split drum, that this side would be separate from this side, so you can actually turn the machine some. This is old school. I've had these things for, oh my gosh, we've got a couple of these. I've had them for, I'd say, pushing 10 years. They're very good. Have lasted us. They're Ryan versions. They've lasted us a very long time. We still use them. But a homeowner that wants to plug and seed, he could go rent one of these things. And this, you actually have to make sure the grass is soft, or the ground is soft or wet. It's not going to do a good job on hard ground. It doesn't have the weight. It doesn't have anything to force the tines down in the ground like the Aerators do, or the one I'm using on my test plot today, that reciprocating, that forces the tines down into the ground. So it's a good option. A little bit of work involved in it, but it's a real good option. So slit seeders, we have some of those, and we had a couple of slit seeders, and they do great when they're needed. There are only certain times I like to use a slit seeder to maximize the result, or to maximize the seed to soil contact. Today's not one of them. I have a couple of bare spots in the test plot, and I'm going to show you how to fix those if you don't have a slit seeder. Or if you could go rent this thing, and I don't know, you might pay upwards of $100 a day. I don't know. But to save $100, I've got a far easier way and much cheaper, especially if you only have a handful of spots in the yard. There's no need in going out and spending money on and renting things like this specialized seeding equipment, if you have a handful of spots. And if you have an entire yard that's bare and thin, slit seeding is the bomb. And you'll see some of that later in some of our renovation videos, where we'll actually use the slit seeders. All right, so do it yourself aerating and seeding. I'll try to keep this short and sweet. And of course, you're going to see our company equipment. And of course, all homeowners don't have access to this, and I understand that. But I'm sure everybody's got a mower. So you need a lawnmower to do this. You'll need some type of spreader, preferably a spreader with an impeller, meaning one that broadcasts the grass seed and broadcasts the fertilizer. And then of course you need a plugger. And today I'm gonna use a walk behind. Yeah, I'm not the lazy couch potato guy. I don't mind getting out here and walking. It doesn't bother me one bit. And plus, I need to get a good feel for this machine for training purposes, to train the guys on the crews to learn how to use it. So this is the Billy Oat 25-inch plug R. And today I'm going to do the test plot. I typically, now the test plot's not too bad. It looks fairly decent. For late August. It's not irrigated, zero irrigation on this. You can see a little bit of excuse me, you can see a little bit of heat stress around the edges. I'm going to show you how to fix that. So you can see I got a couple little yucky spots with a little bit of grass down in here. This is dead grass. That's not thatch. Oh my gosh, that whole dethatching thing just kills me to hear people talk about got to dethatch. Man, most yards do not have issues with thatch. Majority of yards do not have an issue with a thatch problem. The problem is dead turf. See this turf right here? That used to be a grass plant that was green, and it's stressed out over the summer, and it could come back, but it's time to aerate and seed. So I'm not worried about getting that little bit of brown out of the yard. That's going to deteriorate, go away. You won't see it. Stuff like this, you can see where this area is just slightly thin. Just go over it a couple extra times with the plugger. It's honestly it's as simple as that. Bare dirt spots. This is from when they were putting my well in, and the truck sat here or something, and it just killed this grass. So I'm gonna show you how to fix this spot. If all you have, typically we would use an aerator on dirt like this to break it up. Well, I intentionally did not bring the aerator today just to show you how you can fix this if you just have a plugger or a core plugging type machine. So you can see it's a little bit of brown mixed down in here. That's not thatch. It doesn't need to be dethatched. This isn't severe enough for me to bring out a dethatcher or a rake and comb all this out. Now, I got some spots in my good part of my yard that do, and I'm gonna show you that later on, and tell you why that is like it is. But I'm just gonna plug this thing up real good. I'm gonna sock it to it with the fertilizer. As far as cutting it down, I'm gonna take this down to 3 inches. Typically, I would normally go to 3.5 and be done with it. And then when I start back cutting again, I would cut it at 4.5 inches, and I would cut it at 4.5 inches all the way up until next March. And then in March, when I'm ready for the grass to wake up, I'll cut it back. Cut it a couple of times at 3.5 inches, a little lower, to cut the yuck out of the yard and really jumpstart it and get it going. And then after those 2 times of cutting at 3.5, I would immediately go up to 4 to 4.5 and leave it there all year next year until we get back to aerating and seeding. My mowing height does never fluctuates during the growing season. I see people do that all the time. They raise and lower, raise and lower, raise and lower. I just don't do that. It's inconsistent, so you're gonna get an inconsistent performing yard. You have to keep the mower deck up as high as it'll go all year until you aerate and seed. Then you can take it down. So the reason I'm cutting mine down to 3 inches is because I'm a super busy guy right now, and I'm not going to have time to manage this area back here like I want. So I'm going to get it down as low as I can get it without doing any damage, which should be 3 inches. And that'll give me plenty of time for this new seed to come up and start growing a little bit before it has to be mowed again. So that's why I'm taking it down just a little bit lower than I typically would. So if I didn't do what I did for a living and I could be in my yard a lot more this time of the year, I would only cut this at 3.5, plug it, start watering, and 2 weeks start mowing again at 4 or 4.5. So that's kind of my take on how to get your yard prepared for this. Now, if you have a yucky yard and it's really struggled, I would even suggest taking it down lower than that, 2.5, maybe even 2 inches. Just, it all depends on the condition of the yard, really, because you want to open up and get as much dirt. This is if you have a yucky yard that struggled. You want as much dirt exposed as possible, so you can get as much seed to soil contact as possible, So as much of the grass seed as you put down will germinate as possible, if that makes sense. I know that's a lot of as possibles, but I think you get the idea. So let's get with it. I'm gonna mow and then we'll get to plugging. All right, so I've got the yard cut, and a little word of caution. It's wet, the grass is wet, and of course I recommend you never ever mow wet grass. Always let the grass be dry. The actual grass blades itself. Doesn't hurt that bad to mow when the ground is wet, but the actual grass blade needs to be dry when you cut. Because if you don't, that's what happens. See how the clippings, the moisture, they stick together and all? And we have commercial equipment, so I know the average homeowner that doesn't have a commercial mower, this could be a problem. So make sure your grass is dry. To fix, again, the only reason I'm doing this is because my time's real limited, so I can only do it. I need to do it when I can do it. I'm gonna take a backpack blower and walk back over the yard and scatter this out so I don't leave these clippings like that, and that'll fix that. I actually double cut it and it still left a few, so let me get that done. All right, so once the yard is clean, here's what I was showing you, this dead grass along the edges here. There's a trick to doing, I need that dead grass gone, and I don't want to go through the trouble of renting a dethatching rake or whatever you want to call those things. So I want to get it down to dirt like this. Okay, I'm trying to go from here to here. That's what I want. So I can get that seed down in the soil where it needs to be. Because honestly, I just don't think grass seed will germinate up through all that stuff. It's kind of matted down and yucky, and why not give your seed the best chance? So 2 ways you can do that and not use a dethatcher. One is you can use a good strong backpack blower. That works absolutely fine. The other is a yard rake, just a normal little garden rake. You can rake that stuff out, that matted down dead stuff on the edges. So let me get the blower, I'll show you what to do. So once we've got it cut and cleaned up real good, got all our little yucky areas blowed out, we're gonna go with fertilizer next. And this has always been a big debate. Do you put the fert down first or last or when? Honestly, I really don't think it makes a hill of beans when you put it down, as long as you put it down during the time frame that you're aerating seeding, meaning within a week. For convenience, I put it down the same day I put my grass seed down. Never had any issues. This again is the test plot out here, so I get to test and play around with different things and different ideas. This is Screaming Green 1623. It's a pretty well-known fertilizer. I'm counting on this for my nitrogen, and then I want to give these new seeds a real good shot of phosphorus and potassium. So we have this custom blended. It's a 10-20-20 for when we do soil tests. Most of the time our ground comes back really deficient in phosphorus and potassium, so we have that custom blended. That way it's a cheap way to up the P and K really quickly. So you can see I got it mixed in all good right here. The white pebbles and the green pebbles, that's your nitrogens, slow release and quick release, and get a lot of biosolids in there. That's the black, and got your P and K in there as well. So I'm gonna spread this out, and that would be your next step. So running a business and doing yard stuff, you know, I'm real big on order and systems, just because they work. So when I spread my fertilizer, what I do is, and you can do this with your push spreader, you're gonna make an outside pass. You're gonna go all the way around your property and make a I call it edging it out. Is what I call it. So we'll edge it out with a fertilizer, and then that gives you a width here to turn around in, where you don't have to actually, when you come in and you make your turn to go down to put your next pass out, you don't have to actually try to get every little corner, where you've already got a pass here. So when you're coming up and you're spreading, and when you get right to that point, you cut your hopper off. And so you're no longer spreading here, and that gives you a space here to turn around in. And then when you take back off, you open it up and start spreading again. And the way I like to spread is, it's hard to see the tire tracks, but the tire tracks are right here. All right. And so I would go down, and I've got that edge down there already done. I would go down, turn my spreader off, turn the machine around, or turn your spreader around, and then come back down these two tire tracks. Well, the fertilizer is going to throw back to this inside tire track here. That way you get good coverage on it, and that just keeps on going on and on and on and on and on all the way down. So you're almost kind of you're overlapping it by, you know, this particular spreader, it's about a 4-foot overlap or so. And with a push spreader, you can do the exact same thing. I see folks try to spread it way out here, and you know, their other tire track, and if the fertilizer throws to the middle, and then the fertilizer throws to the middle, that's the way you end up getting streaks in your yard, because you have to have something to go by. And if you use your tire tracks to do that, that will give you a much more consistent application. So fertilizer's down, let's start plugging. All right, so if you decide to use the 18-24-12, let's go out at, let's just, for easy math, we're gonna say 4 bags an acre. That's gonna give you roughly a pound or maybe a touch more of nitrogen. And you want to, if let's say you don't have a whole acre of grass, you want to take that 45 and divide it by the 4 bags. So that's going to put you somewhere around 11,000 square feet per bag. So that'd be a good way. If you don't know how much to put out, you measure your yard, and that's basically length times width. You get a square footage, and that's your square footage. And this right here happens to be, this area of grass is about 14,000 square feet, including what I got over there on the back side of the garden and the little strip that goes down the side there. So about 14,000 square feet. So I would put about a bag and a quarter of the 18-24-12 if that's what I were using in this case. Now I use a slightly different structure when I'm doing the actual aerating. And what I mean by that is I'm going to use this straight line as my guide, and I'm going to start plugging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, making sure that I overlap. You can see the tires, you can't follow your tire tracks. You have to actually be looking at the ground, because that's close to 6 inches between these two spots right here. See these two points? So if I follow my tire track and put this tire right back in the track, that means I'm going to have a gap from here to here that doesn't get plugged. So you have to go by this inside tine and the holes in the ground, so you have to constantly be looking. And I even like to overlap a little bit. Yeah, it takes a little longer. This isn't but 25 inches, but you want to do a really good job on this because you only do it once a year, right? So why not knock it out? So I'm going to go down, start plugging back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. When I get to my end, it's going to be just opposite of fertilizer. I'm not really worried about plugging this little bit of area right here, because after I make all my passes and get the whole yard plugged, I'm going to go back and edge it out all the way around the border, probably turn around and go back on the inside of where I just plugged and come all the way down. That way I don't have to try to plug all the way up and get right up against it, because I can run my plugger down this line and get a much cleaner job. So let's get with it. Well, I forgot I bought this thing. Let's see if it'll turn on. Oh. Well, oh, there it goes. We'll try this out. I think I'm gonna like this. So now we're ready to spread some grass seed. Got my fertilizer out. I went over the yard with the plugger. Core aeration, plugger, aerator, whatever you want to call it. Many people have many different names for it, but what we call core aeration or plugging is the actual removal of cores from the ground. You can see here is a spot where I went over 2 or 3 times versus a spot I only went over 1 time. So you can see the difference in the cores, how they're spread out here, and then you come over right here and look at how many more. So at the end of the day, the trick is to get as many grass seeds in the holes as you possibly can. So I basically spread the seed the same way. I went around the edges, made me a pass, and then I started spreading like so, throwing back to the tire tracks. And then with grass seed, I want my coverage even better. So I actually, after I go this way, then I get out here and I go this way, like this. So I get really, really good uniform coverage. I feel like that gives me more of a chance to get more grass seeds in the holes when I make a double pass. All right, so dirt areas. This is where I actually run my irrigation line that goes out to the well. Look at those squash, they're huge. So I want you to tell me what's the difference in these 3 spots. I've got a section here, I've got a section here, and a section here. All right, this middle one was a 1-pass aeration. You can see all the holes in the ground. See, I've got the seed on there pretty heavy for a bare dirt spot. Now, I've argued people till I'm blue in the face on this, and I'll continue to argue it until I turn blue again. I'm not a fan of this. Why? Well, if we get rain or you water or whatever, chances of that seed staying exactly where it's at is slim to none. The chances of it washing down in the holes is probably good, or either washing away. So you have to do something to hold the seed in place in a bare dirt situation. Now, I'm not a fan of straw, by no means. The reason is I can't trace the straw back to the hay field, so I have no idea what's in that hay field, and I don't want to contaminate my yard with it. So I use this area was gone over 2 times with the plugger, and you can see it beat it up pretty good. And then the last area was gone. I went over this 2 times with a plugger, but also used my little magic tool here, my little weasel, garden weasel, and worked this into the ground like that. Now, I'm not trying to go super deep with this. I'm talking about a 1/4 inch or so. And watch this right here. Watch this grass seed. See, when you work that back and forth, and I'm doing this with 1 hand, so I'm not putting a ton of pressure on it. And look at that grass seed. See how it just kind of mixes it all in? And so when you're watering and you keep this ground moist, that seed should stay right there. Now, obviously, if you're on a bank or a slope or a ditch or something like that, they make nettings and that kind of thing, but I don't like any of it. Just, personal preference. I like dirt, seed in the dirt. That's what I like. And I would personally, if I had in this ditch line, if I had a big bare area over there, I would personally rather fight it throughout the entire fall, meaning if I get a heavy downpour and it washes out, come out, put some more seed on it, weasel it in, keep it watered until I win. I'm a very, very persistent dude, and I would fight that area before I put straw or netting or matting or pin mold. All right, so here you go. This is what it should look like after it's all weaseled in. So it does take a little more seed in these spots like this. Here's the truck tire area, and let's see, I think this is third base where the kids play, and there's a hole out there at second base somewhere right in there, and then home plate had a hole. Man, oh man. Look at them bad boys right there. Look at the size of those jalapenos. Nice. What else we got? Banana peppers are kicking in gear. Bell peppers are kicking in gear. Look at the size of that thing. That's what I'm talking about. Alright, so to finish it up, you want to blow off, clean up your workspace, and basically the only thing I've got to blow off is this street edge. And you can see you blow it really nice and easy. That way you leave all the grass seed right there on the edge that you actually threw out in the road. And of course, the single most important part of the entire process. If you are going to go through all the trouble to plug and seed and aerate and seed or whatever, you got to do this part. Got to water. Something that I think that's really important to keep in mind is, should I aerate and not seed, or should I seed and not aerate? Well, I honestly think that the two go hand in hand, and here's why. One, if I came out in this yard and threw a bunch of grass seed down, the chances of it making it down to the dirt is probably pretty good. The chances of it germinating through and coming up through all of this is probably not very good. So I have to create an environment for that grass seed that it will be able to germinate. So that's the reason for the holes, for the core, the plugs in the ground, so that you can get that grass seed down in there. See that grass seed down in that hole? Check it out. Man, that thing's as happy as it can be down in there. So now it's got a hole in the ground that can hold moisture, fill up the water, it'll hold moisture and keep that seed moist so it can pop up and thicken up this area of turf. And when you do that over the entire yard, that's how you get a good thick yard. Can you aerate and not seed? Well, obviously you can. You can do whatever you want to do. But why not put the little bit of grass seed out to help improve your yard? Because after all, that's the entire reason you're aerating and seeding, is to improve your yard and make it better year after year, and preparing it for next year. You know, we're getting everything ready for next season, for next mowing season, by aerating and seeding this year. So that's kind of my take on whether or not to do one and not the other, or do them together or whatever. I've always been a very strong believer that you have to do one with the other, so that, you know, the big picture is you get the yard you're looking for. So whether you're a seasoned veteran and you know exactly what you're doing and you just wanted to watch a guy make a video about aerating and seeding, or if you're a rookie and you don't know anything about it, hopefully this helps. This is just a bare bones, get you started, how to plug and seed a yard. So just to recap, you want to mow the yard, maybe a touch shorter than you normally would mow it. You want to get some fertilizer down. The old staple is 18-24-12. Going into next year, when we have our GCI Turf Academy, GCI Turf School help, I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but where we coach folks through a program for a whole year, we'll learn about some specialty type nutrients that will enhance this seeding effect. But I don't really have all that set up yet, so we're going to work on that going into next year. But for now, you can do 18-24-12. That's perfectly okay. Get your plugger, have at it, plug away. Watching out for the dirt spots. Want to tear those up a little bit better. Weasel, remember to get you a weasel at Lowe's or Home Depot. Then you want to put your grass seed out last. You don't want to procrastinate on putting the grass seed out. I hear people say, well, I'll plug this weekend and seed next week or whatever. Don't do that. What if it rains between now and then? Then that means all your holes are going to begin to fill up and close back up. So you want the grass seed down immediately right after you aerate and seed, right after you aerate, immediately, the same day. Get that done, and then obviously the most important part is keep the water on it. And you know, there's a million different ways you can water the grass seed after it's been put down. It's just so many different ways. So I'm not going to get into all that, but the bare bones of it, keep the grass seed moist. It's literally that simple. Keep the grass seed moist. Don't allow it to dry out. Whether that be from rainfall, irrigation, dragging the sprinkler around like I do back here. That's it. Hey, you guys have a great day. Subscribe and like and do all that cool stuff. And we'll keep these videos coming. Check you later.